Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're tuning in. It's always a good time because it's time for Touchdown in Paradise here on the Fins Talk Sports Network. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
And before she introduces herself, I'd like to introduce her. If you followed me a long time, and only for the real big fans of me, there's probably zero of y'all, you'll remember back in 2016, I had a show back when I was a senior at UCF called Didn't Make the Cut, but I didn't do this show alone. I did it with a very knowledgeable, incredible woman, and she is so excitedly here tonight. We're so excited to have her back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show here, Heather Perry from South Florida.
Hey all, how are you guys doing? I'm excited to be here. Definitely have some exciting news, at least us Floridians do for UCF, but I'm excited to be back here and talk everything college football because wow, it's been a year. It's been a year.
Sure has. Heather, I always see you posting in the UCF group. You're a diehard fan. We're going to get to the big news a little bit later. I'm just really excited to have you here to share all of your insights on what's going on in the college football world. Our job tonight is to drive Russ crazy when the time comes because he's sick of hearing about
it. I'm sure.
But we're going to start right here in Conference Championship Week. Did not disappoint. Down in the SEC, Georgia won their second consecutive overtime game, topping the Texas Longhorns 22-19. Carson Beck got injured on the final play of the first half. Gunnar Stockton comes in second half, 71 yards, a pick. But Trevor Etienne was the star of the show, 94 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, including the game winner. Carson Beck did come in for the last play of the game because it seemed like Gunnar Stockton got knocked out in the last second there in overtime. But then Quinn Ewers, okay game, 358 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Matthew Golden, 8 catches, 162 yards. Well, Russ, you're down in the South, and you understand how this game works. You lived in Nashville, heart of the SEC country. How much does it mean that Georgia, a staple in the SEC, won over the upstart of the SEC, Texas?
Oh, huge. I mean, I'm sure it was probably like, hey, you don't just come in. We're the SEC. We got SEC pride. You don't just come in and think you take it over, you know. Mm-hmm. You got to keep the blue blood in there, Georgia. I really like it. Even this, looking at it, I'm like, we talked about Texas this whole year. Besides Michigan and Georgia, who did Texas really play? And yeah, they beat Michigan, who was 6-5, and lost to Georgia. So you got 2 games against you. Other than that, who did they really play? So like we're talking about these other teams that, you know, even like bringing up Penn State, who do they play? I'm like, you could throw Texas in that same boat. I mean, they played Michigan, in the big house. Michigan's down. I mean, you play Georgia twice and Vanderbilt, Florida. I mean, who have they played besides those teams?
I want you to keep that same energy as we continue to talk about the SEC, Russ. Who have they played? Correct. Heather, any comments on wanting to chime in here?
I can't stand the SEC, so you're probably asking the wrong person.
No, let it all out right now. It's
just like, in my opinion, who was the SEC this year? Like, and that I think that goes across the board. Like, where was their standout team? You had the standout team, Alabama, right? Who was lose to who? Vandy. And then you had a bunch of upsets throughout the year. So it was kind of, for me, like, I don't know who was the top conference because everybody was losing, right? Like, there wasn't a solid person. Like, I don't think Georgia's the solid overall team. We have Oregon, yes, but even again, like looking at them, we could say who did anybody play at this point because everybody has losses. Everybody lost to some unranked teams at this point too. So it just makes it kind of difficult. I mean, I lived in Georgia. I lived in Atlanta. I went to the SEC championship last year and it was a great experience. But I think that the SEC people, which I'm sure they'll come at me, they usually always do, I think they have a little bit too big of heads this year to really claim that SEC was the best conference. In my opinion, I could be wrong. I'm just making the point. I just don't think Georgia's going to win the national championship. I don't think they have the talent for it. But
winning the national title doesn't make you the best. Doesn't make you like, oh, our team won the national title. We're the best conference. Like, I went to school in North Dakota, and how many people from Minnesota loved the Big Ten in the year? And I trashed the Big Ten. And that year they were terrible. Like I was like, the Big Ten is a trash conference. And then they come at me, oh, yeah, Ohio State won the national title. I'm like, just because you won it all doesn't mean your conference is physically a strong conference. So, like, yeah, I think the SEC
Not
just
what the SEC thinks. Like if you talk
okay,
to an
SEC just beats up each other. Like SEC is way better than every other conference out there.
but
I
are
mean,
they?
Texas, I think there's an issue where they have to balance the schedule a little more, where we just can't have Texas ride through to the title game like that. Where balance, I don't know if you heard Saban was like, hey, you got to go around, maybe play more conference games, because there is teams that did have a tough ride, and then there's teams that had an easier path to get to that title game. So I'm with, I don't know if you heard Coach Saban bring that up. I'm with Coach Saban on that one, where I think, maybe they go 10 conference games, where you could see having Texas having to play Alabama, having to play Georgia, more.
I mean, we had Georgia, but they played Texas in the regular season. This was their second loss. So now Texas is what? Losers to Georgia. But, like, if you look at the schedule of who Georgia played to, I mean, they almost lost to Georgia Tech. They almost lost to. They barely skirted by Kentucky. So you're talking about these teams who, like, who did they really play? They only beat Mississippi State by 10. Like, I don't know. I don't think Georgia had that much of a room to talk to. Like, I do feel bad for other teams, I think, in the SEC who might have had a better conversation to be had, even though they had maybe 3 losses, but they lost to actually ranked teams. So, like, I just feel like there's definitely a conversation to be had. I think the playoff committee was kind of in shock throughout the entire season. I don't think anybody expected what happened to happen. I mean, look at Miami getting left out. I think that was definitely a shock to everybody. I mean, I hate Miami, so I don't care.
Who did Miami play?
No, I hear you. I'm with you on that. When did the ACC?
And I have a whole conversation. Like, I can get into this. I mean, I want to talk about this, but we can get into my opinion on this whole 12-team playoff. And I know Justin knows I'm fired up about that. I could go for a while, and I'd love to get some other people's opinions, because I have my own opinion, but I mean, I'm always right and you're always wrong.
That's that opinion.
Yeah. But I mean, I have my own opinions on this 12-team playoff.
I got you.
And we'll get to those too. But real quick, I want to talk about another one. Heather and I have a little bone to pick here, because Oregon led wire to wire in a battle with Penn State 45-37. And that bone to pick is Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel. We all know him. We all remember how he left. Has he redeemed himself in the eyes of UCF fans? Not that that matters so much to the world, but I'm curious, Heather, what are your thoughts on Gabriel coming out and finally winning these big games at a different school?
I feel like Dillon Gabriel has been playing for as long as I was in a relationship and got divorced, like, which was 8 years. So I feel like that's like a really long time and way too long. But I just feel like I would hope he's good by now. Like, I would hope he's doing it. How old is he now? He has to be at least, 26?
I'll check that real quick. Dillon Gabriel.
He has to be up there.
23.
23. Okay, 23. So, like,
That means nobody likes him, right? Blink-182?
To me, Dillon Gabriel, the reason why I don't like him is the same reason why I don't like LeBron James. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I felt like he used UCF as his platform when he wasn't playing well anymore, because he did, at the end of the day, have us lose our first game in that streak. It was him, and he should have been pulled that game, but that's besides the point. I feel like he used us as a stepping stool, and then all he cared about was the money. And when he wasn't going to get the money from UCF, he whined to the next school. And then when he wasn't going to get money from them, he whined to the next school. And I feel like all he was doing was looking for it's easy to win when you have a great team around you. That's why LeBron was able to win in Miami, right? He had Wade, he had Bosh. So I feel like that's what Gabriel kept looking for to make himself look better. And he was stepping on other people to get there. And that's my issue with him, is that it's for the money and it's not, I don't know, put him on a team where you don't have a decent O-line or a good defense or the best receivers or the best running backs, and you have a subpar team and see how he does. And then say that you're super talented and then say you can win the Heisman, in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm not saying he's not talented. Do I think he'll make it in the NFL? Absolutely not. He's too short.
I mean, the real question is, you two being UCF alums, do you guys claim Dylan Gabriel as one of your own?
I don't.
As a
You
guy,
know, I actually put a feeler about that out to the UCF fan page the other day, and a lot of people are not claiming this as the first ever Heisman finalist for UCF, and rightfully so, because he put us back in the dust and made his way to Oklahoma. Things go okay there the second year he's there, and then he bolts for Oregon to finish off his career. I'm happy for him. Sure, he found a place where he's happy, he's making the money that he wants, and he's having a heck of a season. Undefeated, number one team in the nation, and good for him. But at this point, it's just a distant memory. It's part of him, but I don't think we can truly claim him at this point.
Again, he's been playing for so long, so it's hard to like even remember him, to be quite honest. It's like you hear about him, but no, like honestly, I wish JRP, I wish Mikey Keene, I wish all of them a lot more luck, and like I have more of an attachment to them than I do to Dylan Gabriel, to be honest.
I mean, I think it's like a different story. Like, yes, Hurts went to Oklahoma, but he graduated from Alabama, so you can still claim him. Like, Joe Burrow is not going to be like, oh, I'm an Ohio State guy. Like, no, he even says I'm LSU. I'm an LSU guy. Like, I wouldn't claim him for Ohio State just because he went there.
Well, Joe Burrow actually did say, I went to school at Ohio State. I played football at LSU.
Yeah, went to school.
And that's the best way to put it, honestly.
But like, Joe Burrow should also thank UCF, because he literally would not be the quarterback he was that last year at LSU if it wasn't for that game. But that's just, I heard the hit across the world. I was there.
I was there in the front row in the end zone watching it happen. But yes, back to this game here. Dylan Gabriel, 283 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then we had Jordan James, 87 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Tez Johnson, by the way, MVP of the game, 11 catches, 181 yards, 1 touchdown. Just came back from an injury. He was definitely the difference maker on the field for Oregon. Drew Auer, meanwhile, for Penn State, 226 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks, including one that pretty much sealed the game. Katron Allen, 124 yards and 1 touchdown on the ground. Oregon clinches the number 1 seed in the CFP. How do we feel about their chances to win it all for the first time ever, Russ?
I mean, I would feel good, but I feel in this 12-team playoff, like, one bad thing that happens, anything can happen in this. So, like, I don't think their defense is as good as it was last year, so that's an issue. But I think the field is very, even though they are undefeated, I think it's very even field where, 1 through 6, 1 through 9 could technically win. I'd throw Tennessee and Ohio State right in there, so I feel it's a very even field. So on any given Friday, I guess we're playing the first couple games, which will be weird playing college football on a Friday. Big college football, I say. I guess they play, we play some games on Friday. But I think on any given day, it could be up to anybody, have one bad play, one bad call, as people say, the refs ruining the game for us. Anything can happen.
Heather, how about you? Thoughts on Oregon being the title favorite, even though they're the number 1 seed?
I don't know. I feel like you just have to think about these other schools who have something they have to prove. I don't think Oregon's been in the talk too much of like, oh, you have something to prove. And I think that does play a part. They've had a pretty easy ride to this playoff picture. And I think Ohio State's going in, right, if that's who they end up having to play in that matchup, Ohio State would be going in saying, well, I'm the coach who lost to Michigan, and I'm also the coach that already lost to Oregon. I don't want to lose again. Like, you already have that on your back, and I think that definitely brings a difference into the locker room, 150%. I think that's why when we get to the coaching news, what makes a difference in a coach and players. I think Texas also is now thinking, well, we have something to prove too now. We were number one for so long and everybody was talking about us, and we have, and honestly, why didn't Manning play more? Like, that's another thing I had an issue with. Like, I felt like he should have probably stepped in instead. I think he only came in for one play, and I think that was probably a mistake, but that's besides the point. As far as the other teams go, like, I can't stand to see Georgia in a national championship again. Like, there's just certain teams, like, regardless of my feelings, like, I don't want to see it again. I don't want to see Georgia in it. I don't want to see Clemson in it. I don't want to see Alabama in it. I know Alabama doesn't have a chance, but I'm just saying, like, in general, there's just certain teams I'm tired of seeing over and over again. And I'm ready to see a different team, a different winner, a change of pace. And whether you like the 12 playoff, the way it works and the way they're stacking it against certain conferences, I still think that it gives the ability for, like Russ was saying, any given day, a team can lose.
They say any given Sunday in the NFL, any given Saturday or now Friday in college football.
Any given day. In this
That's
realm.
right. Just taking a look at some of the other conference championship games that happened this past weekend. SMU completed a 17-point comeback until they didn't. Clemson got the ball with under a minute to go, kicked the game-winning field goal at the buzzer, which was just enough to knock Alabama out of the playoff picture. Heather, did they get it right?
I want to say yes, because I hate Alabama, but, like, I feel it. Like, I feel the pain because I was one of those people last year who felt my heart broke for FSU. Whether you believe, like, my heart broke for that team, like, and it's about the players. And I felt that SMU didn't have the strength of schedule as some of the other schools did. I don't think Miami should have jumped Alabama. I think that there definitely should have been a little bit more conversation. I understand what the committee said when they were like, well, they did come back and it was a close game, and to only lose in the last few seconds, you can't hate them for that, but you kind of have to if you're really like, my point being is, like, the playoff committee can't have it both ways. They can't rely on strength of schedule until it gets to, like, the end and be like, oh, well, they tried really, really hard though. And, like, they did so well and they just tried so hard. Like, no, you have to, there's obviously stipulations in place and you have to stick to them. And if that's it, like, you have to stick to those. Because I don't, like, you could say the same thing about the Florida Gators, right? They technically had the hardest strength of schedule coming into college football. They were ranked the number one. And towards the end of the season, they had a complete flip and were winning games that they should not have been winning. And they were competing in games that they should have not been competitive in. So it's like, how do you say that to them? Even South Carolina was beating some pretty hard ranked teams. Like, it's just, to me, it was like a participation trophy for them to be like, here you go. You try really hard. Congratulations.
Interesting take. Russ, remember that energy that I said, come back with that same energy about who has Texas played? Well, here we go with Alabama. Yeah, they played a tough schedule, but they also had a couple ugly losses there. Did they deserve to get in over SMU?
I think, and I'm not going to go at the committee because I think they probably have a very tough job. I think they kind of painted themselves in a corner where they go in, they say strength of schedule matters. And then, yeah, SMU plays a really tough game. And, oh, well, you guys played a tough game. Like Heather said, we'll let you in. They played absolutely nobody this year. I mean, the one loss before Clemson was BYU, who is now unranked. So it's like, I feel like they paint themselves in the corner where if they're talking strength of schedule, Alabama has a better case. Ole Miss has a better case. South Carolina has a better case. I mean, I would have took Alabama. I mean, no matter what you say about Alabama, and it's not Saban's Alabama, they can beat you. Jalen Milroe can beat you on any given day. I would have took South Carolina and loved to see Lenore Sellers in there, who is, South Carolina was the hottest team in college football going into the end of the year. So, I mean, I think they got it wrong, but I think I think after this year, my thing is reevaluate this if they're, and instead of giving the 4 highest conference champions a bye, let's just go straight 4, because there's teams who are getting those byes, such as much as I'm rooting for Boise State, does Boise State, have a better case than Texas or, another winner? Because, I mean, their strength of schedule is almost in the hunt, is at like 89.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they're going to have to figure that out. Do they have a better case than Notre Dame? Do they have a better case than Ohio State or Arizona State's the same thing? Do these teams have below them, or Tennessee have a better case? So I think they might have to reevaluate that and just say, hey, we're not going to give those 4, the top 5, conference winners, the top 4 of them an automatic bye. Whereas let's just go top 4, get those byes. It doesn't matter if you finish first or second in your conference.
You both offer great perspectives on this, and I really appreciate you sharing. Either way, I can already tell you what's guaranteed is the loudest guy in the room of those reevaluations is going to be Greg Sankey from the SEC. He's going to be flipping a table saying, this is so unfair. Look at Alabama. They're so great, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do whatever we can to get all of our teams in. And he's probably going to get his way because the SEC is where the money is. Them and the Big Ten control this new format. But before we go back there, we're going to start with now, Russ, I'm sorry, we got to talk about this. You're an Arizona fan. Arizona State destroying Iowa State and Arlington to win the Big 12. This was a team that was picked to finish last in the Big 12. They did not do well whatsoever in the last year of the pack, but Sam Levitt came through with 219 yards, 3 touchdowns. And how about Cam Skattebo, 170 yards and 2 scores on the ground? That man is just a walking wrecking ball, or should I say running wrecking ball. That kid can play. Heather, this is what we're up against now in the Big 12. We didn't have to face Cam Skattebo. He was out for one game, and it happened to be the game we played. And we still managed to lose.
Yep.
It just would have been a lot worse, is what I would say.
Ugh. How does it get worse than this season? This season
I just feel like Gus chose to lose certain games, and it was the 2 games against these 2 teams, the Iowa State game and then the Arizona State game. They were so winnable right there, and then everything just comes crashing down.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to fuck Arizona State, excuse me, my language, and go fuck themselves. But, I mean, Dylan Ham, I'll give him his credit, picked it last, done a phenomenal job. Cam Skattebo, a guy that went to Sacramento State, and is, looking like one of the best young running backs in the game. So, I'll give him credit on that. And that defense played phenomenal. I was very disappointed because I was all jacked up for just ready to watch good football all day, and we got that piece of shit. So, but I'll give credit where credit's due. That he's doing a phenomenal job.
Russ, you were single-handedly going to get us demonetized.
Yeah, dude, we got Pete on this channel.
Yes, Pete is unfortunately out today, and Joe, very sad, is out because his girlfriend had to have an emergency procedure. We're sending our prayers to the both of them, making sure they're all right. And then we're going to talk here about Boise State. How about Ashton Jeanty and the Broncos, 21-7 over UNLV in the Mountain West title game. Their final game in the Mountain West, by the way. They're becoming part of the new wave of the Pac-12 come the start of next year. But Jeanty himself, 32 carries, 209 yards, and a touchdown. Maddox Batson, the quarterback, 150 through the air, touchdown, and another one on the ground. Has he locked it up because he had one extra game over Travis Hunter, or is he still at the disadvantage, Russ?
I want to say yes because I'm rooting for Ashton Jeanty like so hard. Like I want him to win so bad. I think it'd be so great to see a guy from Boise, Idaho, went to Boise State and Boise, Idaho, win the Heisman. So I'm rooting for him so hard. My question is, if we take Travis Hunter off Colorado, is that team going to be that much worse? Are they going to still be able to be competitive? And I think they'll still be able to win he might have got him 1 or 2 extra wins. If you take Ashton Genty off of Boise State, where is that team now?
It's a very good point.
I think it's a good point to bring up too, because like you could bring it up for last year's decision, right? So you had FSU, you took away the quarterback, and then they said, nope, they're done. They're not going to make it. Would they have done the same with Colorado? So if Colorado was in this 12 playoff situation, would the playoff committee, Travis Hunter's injured, season ending, will not be playing? Will they say, up Colorado, they don't have a chance anymore? I think that's a conversation to be had. And as you're saying for Boise State, like, I think if that was to happen to that particular player, the playoff committee probably would have had a different conversation. Because like you're saying, it's like you have to look at the talent surrounding as well. So I agree with you at that point.
And I think he is an old school college football player where he's not like these new guys where he's just jumping from team to team because he can get more money. This is a guy who got offered, didn't come out what schools offered him, but was offered plenty of money to leave, and he turned it down to stay with his teammates and play in Boise and make something happen. And look, now they're the number 3 overall seed. So I think that's great for college football. The guy who went through the process, stayed with this team instead of just jumping from school to school because I can get more money or I can get more playing time here, sticking with the process, and look where they are now. And maybe he wins a Heisman. And I'm rooting for Boise State to win it all. I would love that. That'd be unbelievable.
It sure be a heck of a story. I did see a video today. Boise State coach Spencer Danielson said right now 13 players I know of are being illegally recruited by other teams because the portal hasn't opened yet. It's going to create a big conversation as this goes on. Who's illegally recruiting by offering the NIL money up before the portal opens? We're going to start hearing this every single year, and this is what the new suspension for postseason is going to be like for teams who do this. But now that we've talked about all of that, it's here. The inaugural 12-team CFP is officially set, and the bracket looks like this as follows. 12 seed Clemson goes to Austin to face number 5 Texas. The winner goes to the Peach Bowl to face number 4 Arizona State. Number 9 Tennessee goes to Columbus to face Ohio State. Winner goes to the Rose Bowl to face number 1 Oregon. Number 11 SMU travels to Happy Valley. Number 6 Penn State. The winner goes to the Fiesta Bowl to face number 3 Boise State. And number 10 Indiana going not too far down the road to South Bend, Indiana for number 7 Notre Dame. Winner goes to the Sugar Bowl to face number 2 Georgia. We've already talked about, did Alabama deserve it? Did they not? But I want to get our perspective on this. Is this form going to work? Does it need to be reseeded? Let's start with Heather.
Yes, absolutely. I think it needs to be, I think just the the guidelines need to be adjusted, because are we going by strength of schedule, or are we going by conference wins? Are we going by conference championships? Like, what are we going by here? And if we're going to open it up to just strength of schedule, then like, what are conferences anymore, right? Because you're going to set it's going to be hard to, if the SEC is always going to be the highest ranked conference, then any other, like the Big 12, the Big 10, all of these schools are going to have to start playing more SEC teams, and vice versa. If like there's a shift, because there's usually always that shift in college football where like the Big 12 is going to be the top conference for this year. So I think there definitely needs to be some guidelines in place. I like the 12. I like expanding it. I think it gives the opportunity to schools who wouldn't have been given that opportunity, like when UCF was left out of it way back in the day. It does open room for those schools, but does it really? And I think that's really going to be the question that we have to look at, because you can have, I saw in your guys' like the beginning of the intro, like you have, I'm just throwing a school out there, Jack State, right? No one knows who the heck Jacksonville State is. I only know because I lived in Georgia and they were only an hour and 15 from us. But like, you have a school like that, like if they go undefeated, are they really going to be in the top 12 if you're looking at their conference? Probably not. So like you do have to, I think, look at the bigger picture and figure out what these guidelines are going to be and really stick to them.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Russ, tell me your thoughts. Does this form work? Does it need reform? Does it need to be reseeded after one round? Tell me.
I mean, I don't know if the read seating. I mentioned it before. I think maybe not giving just an automatic bye to the you won your conference type of thing, where Ohio State could get one. I feel reseeding would be nice for the top 4 bye teams, where we're not just giving your company. I mean, Big 12 was not as strong this year. Does Boise State really deserve a bye or just to get in because their conference is very weak and their strength of schedule is 89? I'm happy they got it. I'm rooting for Boise State, but is that the case where you got number 5 Ohio State who has to go play? Yes, Michigan's down. You still have to play Michigan. I mean, you have to go to Eugene and play Oregon and lose by 3. It's not the same. You have to play Indiana, who's good this year. So it's just not. I mean, it's up and down. What are they going with? I think they'll probably reevaluate after the year, and I think there should be a change. And if Nick Saban says it, it probably will happen because that guy is God in college football.
It just seems Saban always gets what he wants because he's the voice of reason when it comes to college football. Nobody ever did it better than he did.
Unless Billy comes.
As much as I didn't like him as a coach, as a broadcaster, he's actually very insightful and very good. So I really enjoyed his insight on College Game Day. But now looking at the bracket, what matchup are we most excited for in the first round? Russ, start with you.
Ohio State, Tennessee.
That's a good one.
You got I think that's going to be
bloods meeting in Columbus in the wintertime. Could be a snowstorm. We never know.
I mean, that's going to be a good game. We'll see what Nico Iamaleava, if I was correct, what he does, because they've had their ups and downs offensively. Defense looks solid. The running back's pretty good. We'll see what Ohio State does with their bounce back after that bad loss. And then also, Notre Dame having that home game against, Indiana. So those are a couple games I'm circling that I'm excited to watch.
Heather, how about you?
I would say Tennessee and Ohio State is probably going to be the only good game. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I feel like the other games are going to be blowouts. Like, I think Texas is going to hand it to Clemson. Penn State's going to hand it to SMU, and Notre Dame's going to hand it to Indiana. So I feel like if I'm going to watch a good game, I'm watching the Tennessee-Ohio State game.
I'm watching all games. I don't know.
I'll watch them, but think about good football. You're probably going to get the best game in that one.
Heather, we need to get you out to California so we can all watch together and just do a live stream of what we think about all these games.
So some of them are rough, man. I don't know. I couldn't even watch some of the UCF games towards the end of the season. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I turned those things off. But hey, we've got some big news to announce. Heather, you are the guest today, so how about you break the news?
We got Scotty back. Daddy Scotty's back. I'm so excited. And he brought his boy home, Milton, which we all were counting on. Look at him. It's a McKenzie Milton jersey. I think what that's doing is, and I talked to my dad about this a lot, actually. Like, me and him talk probably sports anywhere from an hour to 2 hours a day. And he was like, well, they're, Mackenzie Milton's young, and, Scott Frost didn't do much in Nebraska. And it was like, I get that. And I hear what you're saying, but one, who wants to go play in Nebraska? Not me. And NIL wasn't even a conversation really too much then. And I think what hiring Scott Frost did and hiring Mackenzie Milton, booster money is going to come flying back in. Season ticket sales are going to sell out. People had already talked about if Gus was going to stay in, they were going to sell. They were not rebuying. I think it's a huge culture change. I watched his press conference, and what I liked about what he said was like, I am not going to go into the portal unless I absolutely have to. I want to look at who I have, and I want to give money to who I have. I want to develop them. And I think that is going to say a ton to new recruits. So I love the decision. I'm excited for the decision, and I think it was definitely necessary. I much rather have them back, and I don't care if they're young. I was saying, if you saw my Facebook post, I literally at a certain point would have rather had a kindergartner be our offensive coordinator, because they probably would have been more creative than Gus was with our offense. I mean, it was terrible. And seeing it live, I paid over $800 to go to that Gator game, and I was so upset that I wasted money for that performance. So I'm super excited. I'm on the wait list now for season tickets, so hopefully we get them. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we do and how we grow. I know it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, but God, at least we'll have our fast offense back, because like I could not stand how slow we were playing. It was killing me.
Yeah, you go from Scott Frost to Josh Heupel to Gus Malzahn, and it's watching a high school offense. The last 4 years, from day one when Gus came in, we were down 4 scores to Boise State. I knew it was not going to work out, even when we came back and won the game. It was just not exciting football to watch. It was past the game that we have today. Yeah, the fast offense, it has its pros and cons. The pros are it's exciting. That's what I really loved about watching UCF football. I would watch UCF highlights in the gym when I was working out back in the day, because it just got me so fired up. Like, yeah, these guys know how to put the work in. They know how to run. That speed is so much fun. And then you had me turning my TV off because it was just so uninspiring. And like you said about the booster money coming back in, it's giving people hope. It's giving us nostalgia, fantasy of what we used to be, and how can you modernize that? Because the game has changed a little bit. Now, passing used to be king in all football. Now the running game is making a comeback. We had R.J. Harvey leading the way the last couple of years. I will never talk down about that man. He's got my respect forever. That man can run over anybody.
My heart breaks for him.
Yeah. Disrespected running back. Right up there with Ashton Genty if he had a better team, I would say. But either way, I'm so excited. And the fact that Mackenzie Milton is back, I feel like we were all manifesting this to happen eventually. And he could be our head coach in waiting. I don't expect him to stay right away in his whole career. I expect, he'll take an OC job to any school who wants him. But he'll come back eventually when things settle down, who knows, and become our head coach. But to finally get him back in the fold, it's like getting the band back together. It makes me so happy just seeing this group back.
When I saw the video today of Shaquem coming back and Mackenzie and Frost, and like to see the respect they still have for their coach, even though he left, and I don't care. I was not that girl. I understood why he left. I think he did it right. I think he was very respectful to the players and how he disclosed it to them. And that was at the time. So I worked for the UCF football team from 2013 till I graduated in 2016. And so I saw the O'Leary transition to Frost, and I was in the folds when we were recruiting a lot of these, like Otis and McKinney.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, and I was there for all of that. And I was not only in the recruiting process, but then I was in the tutoring process. Like I was working with them a lot, and to see them all come back is just it was like a very emotional moment for me too, just as a fan. And I think that is going to change everything. And I think the players are going to want to play for them. I don't think they wanted to play for Gus. I don't even think Gus wanted to be there, to be quite honest. I've met him a couple of times when I was on campus, and it just felt very forced, the way he interacted with even just fans. So I'm very happy. So sorry to FSU. Yikes. That's all I got to say.
Now, what could be very intriguing is we could have Scott Frost versus Bill Belichick in week 1 of next year.
Oh, God. No, I think, aren't we playing Jacksonville State University? I don't think he's going to go there. I'm pretty sure that's our
week 1. When are we playing North Carolina next year?
I'm not sure. But I do know I think our first game is Jacksonville State. So, because I is over there. But, like, oh, Bill. watching Brady and Gronk talk about him as a coach in college football just made me giggle.
Yep.
That'd be
Okay, it would be September 20th next year. So my apologies, not week 1, but still something that would be interesting. Yes, for all those who are not filled in right now, Bill Belichick is talking to the University of North Carolina to fill in or become their next head coach after Mac Brown has been out. So we've got something else to watch here. Russ, I know you're not a UCF guy, but you do live in Florida. Have you seen any excitement whatsoever from your friends over there about this? Or has there been anything that you've seen?
No.
Well, he's in the USF world, so
No,
we don't
not
talk
even
about those
USF. It's still Florida or Florida State.
Mhm.
And, you know, maybe UCF's like the 4th best team in the state. I'm going to throw them behind FAU because I like that coach. And I like giving Justin some shit. But I haven't seen much. I mean,
I don't think you could say they're like. I think they're even they're below FIU at this point.
I'm sorry, Russ. What was the score on November 2nd again?
against Florida, you played Florida State.
No. November 2nd. What
Against
happened?
Arizona? Yeah, it's all good. I'm over it.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bad year. It's come talk to me when it's basketball time.
Okay,
But I mean, I on my side, I only see basically Florida State. I'm sure if I'm in Orlando, it's a different story, but I think Florida State probably always going to dominate the state if we're really getting down to it.
Well, in terms of brand-wise, they'll always be the main staples, along with Miami to a certain extent.
And I don't like the Nebraska slander you're talking about there, Heather. Like, let's get real. Like, if I'm a true college football guy, weather aside, I'd rather play at Nebraska because the history is way bigger at Nebraska than it will ever be at UCF.
Oh, I wasn't saying just at UCF. That wasn't my thing. Is if I had a chance to play at Nebraska, or I was getting called to Alabama or Florida or Georgia or literally any other big school, I would definitely choose one of them over Nebraska simply because there's nothing to do there.
But this is a team that sold out like 430 straight games. So I mean,
but where are they now?
Selling out.
They're bowl eligible. That's all we can say at this point.
Yeah, they're just bowl. But I'm like, where has that? Like, they haven't really been in the conversation. So I think that is what I meant when I was saying, like, when he went there, they weren't in the conversation even then. I think it was really hard for him to go in there and try to recruit players when you had the big schools doing what they were doing at the time.
And at the same time, Nebraska really died when they left the Big 12 because they had their direct pipeline to Texas recruiting when they would go down and play in A&M, play Baylor, whoever.
This is true.
Go play in Oklahoma. Go get those big corn-fed guys that they could bring up there and play big boy football, like Pete likes to say. But when they left the Big 12, they weren't going down there anymore. They were going to play games in Iowa and Penn State, Ohio State, all the teams that are probably going to out-recruit them. Because let's face it, as much as a blue blood that Nebraska is, their blue blood status comes from the Dallas Cowboy dynasty era. So you're looking at 30 years ago, just about. And when you think of that, yeah, the history is there. No doubt the big brand, it's still there. But what have you done for me recently comes into play. Yeah. And I know Pete is a Cowboys fan, would probably agree with me. My dad is a Cowboys fan, would probably agree with me.
I think
they become realists now that they know they're not going anywhere. They know things are different now.
I think they made a lot of logistical mistakes that is hurting now whatever name they did have. And I think they need to figure that part out before they could be in any talks. And I mean, like, office stuff, not so much player-wise. They've got to figure all that out to be a top name again. They could. Absolutely. Anybody could.
Yep. Well, now we're going to go into our very quick Paradise Parlay here this week because there's only one real game that we're paying attention to, and that's Army-Navy. Game happening this Saturday. Army is a 6-point favorite on the spread. The over-under is a measly 40 points. Can we see that? We'll see. And then the money line, Army minus 245, Navy plus 200. Russ, give it a go.
Well, I'm usually go Navy, beat Army, and I'll stick with that. But I do think Army wins. I just think they're a better team. But I'm rooting for Navy. I'm trying to get what was the over under again?
40.
I think they go over. I think they both can score some points this year, so I'm going to go over on that, and Army to cover on both fronts. But I usually root for Navy, so I'll root for Navy. But I do think Army's the better team this year.
When this game comes, usually it's just an exhibition game, but it's a long-standing tradition that you always are getting up and watching. Whether you have a rooting interest or not, these people give their lives, essentially, to serve this country, and there's no hatred going around. That being said, my great-uncle was in the Navy, so I've got to pick them. Go midshipmen. I'm going to pick them to pull the upset, I guess, here. So I'll go, they cover the spread. I'm taking the under, though, because I don't feel like this is going to be some easy score game. It'll be like when both these teams face Notre Dame, they're just going to give it their all. The defense is going to be lights out, shut down. It's probably going to be a field goal game, in my opinion. So I'm going to have Navy winning 17-14. Heather?
I'm going to go Army. I think over. And yeah, I'm gonna go Army just because I think they're the better school, they're better team. I'm sorry. I know
All
you guys
right.
maybe,
No, it's okay. Okay. We respect all of our servicemen. Thank you for your service, servicemen and women. Now for our predictions. So we have our end of the year awards coming up here, starting off with the Chuck Bernedict Defensive Player of the Year Award. Now, you're going to hear a lot of repeated names throughout these, well, because these players tend to dominate in multiple categories. Starting off with, who else? Travis Hunter from Colorado. Next up, we have Abdul Carter from Penn State. And finally, rounding out the top three, we have Caleb Downs of Ohio State. Now, just my thoughts here. The two names that truly jump out to me are Travis Hunter and Caleb Downs. I didn't know too much about Abdul Carter. The voters are going to be very intrigued by Travis Hunter, but then they're also going to see Caleb Downs quarterback that defense that's still very, very good. I think it's just a coin flip between the two of them. Heads Travis, tails Caleb, and screw it. I'll go with the Ohio State, Caleb Downs. He's my winner. Russ?
Yeah, I'm going Travis Hunter.
Heather?
I'm going Caleb Downs because I have Travis Hunter winning something else. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman. Let's be honest, he's probably going to win the Heisman, but I don't want him to win the Heisman, but I think he definitely has talks for some other awards. But I don't want
including this next one. Yes, the Bolitnikoff Wide Receiver Award. You guessed it, Travis Hunter's up for this one too against Russ. Can you please pronounce this guy's name?
I think it's
Teteroa McMillan?
Teteroa McMillan. Just call him T-Mac.
T-Mac, got it. And then Nick Nash from San Jose State. Not the group of schools that you typically expect for the wide receiver award. You're expecting someone from like LSU or Florida State, something like that. But no, we get Colorado, Arizona, and San Jose State. Very interesting group. Heather, do you have a pick that's going to jump out here?
I'm going to go with T-Mac because I'm still not thinking Travis Hunter's going to win this one.
I'm going to echo that sentiment too, because Travis Hunter just seems like when you play two positions, you can't be over the top the best of both of them. You can be really good at both of them. But what did he do that really stood out over the other two? So I'll go with T-Mac as well. Russ, do I even have to say your pick?
Well, I'm going Teteroa McMillan. He's got 1,319 yards as opposed to Travis Hunter's 1,152. Like you said, he's playing both sides of the ball. But, phenomenal year. But T-Mac was that offense and is probably the reason we weren't all that good because that's the only player we had on offense. So I think he wins this. Shout out is from Southern Servite High School in Anaheim, California. So California kid, him and Noah Fafita.
Russ froze in that position. That was just perfect. Him sticking the work. You remember that meme that went around of Timo doing that, Heather?
Mhm.
Timo is the UCF for those who are unaware. Now back into this. The Maxwell Player of the Year award. Some guy from Colorado named Travis Hunter is also up for this one too. Phenomenal player all around, but did he dominate one position enough to win something? But this one's not a position award. This is just all-around player of the year. So Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty from Boise State, and then Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. You know, this one I feel like Travis Hunter very well will win because this is one for player of the year encompassing the game of football. And you've got two guys who dominated offense in Genty and Gabriel, but you've got a guy who basically was dominant in both sides of the ball here. And that's why I feel like he's going to win this one. Russ?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. You kind of changed. I was going Genty, but playing both sides, you kind of changed my mind, so I'm going Travis Hunter.
Heather?
Yeah, this is where I have Hunter going because I have Genty winning the Heisman. It's because just I think I'm sure this is not part of what they look at. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed. But I just think his story gets him the Heisman over Hunter. I think Hunter had a lot of weapons around him that helped him be the player he was. If he was playing for a Boise State team or any other team, like, would he be the same player he is at Colorado? So I think that's why I would put Hunter as winning this one, because he does play both sides of the ball, and obviously that's very impressive, but he's not going to do that in the NFL, so let's let him get his glory here.
Yeah, I think it'll be about where he gets drafted to the NFL. If it's a creative coach, if he goes to the Chiefs somehow, some way, you know that Andy Reid's going to find a place for him somewhere on the field. I would say if Belichick was coaching that he would do the same, but it's going to be very interesting what he decides to do.
I think it's just for him to do that in the NFL. I think it'll just, I don't know if it's going to be, his body's going to be able to handle that in the NFL. I think it's a very big shift, and doing it in college as opposed to doing it in NFL. The players are obviously bigger, more aggressive. It's a harder game. So I just don't know if that would be the safest thing for him to do and the smartest decision. But you never know nowadays with these coaches. I mean, look at Tua.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have the Davey O'Brien Quarterback Award. For here, we have Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, and Cam Ward down in Miami. Heather, let's start with you this time. It's a tough one.
I know. I mean, it's a toss-up for me between Gabriel and Ward, simply because I just can't stand Sanders. I think he's just, and I know that can't be a decision maker in this, but something about him just irks me. But I kind of want to say Cam Ward. I think what he did with Miami was he gave Miami their spark back. Miami's been looking for that quarterback spark for a while. I think that's been the biggest position they've been missing. So I think what he did down there was impressive. So I'm going to go with Cam Ward.
That's a great point that you make there. Russ, do you echo that sentiment, or do you go another way?
No, I'm with Cam Ward. And haven't they already called this one for Cam Ward? Am I mistaken?
I'm not sure. Let me see. No, I don't think they have. It'd be at the top of the Google search. I think it'll be announced this Friday or Saturday. So you're going with Cam Ward. Okay.
I'm going with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I've got to agree with everybody here. Dylan Gabriel had a phenomenal year. He absolutely would deserve this award in another year. Shedeur carried Colorado offensively. He is an excellent player, and I'm excited to see him at the next level, what he can do, and as he matures into a grown man.
Please.
And then you've got Cam Ward, of course. And I look at games like Florida. He just looks like he doesn't even care, and he's just throwing this ball, making it look so easy. I've called him the Jokic of college football all year, and that's how I'm still going to stick with him. The man just looks like he doesn't care, and it's so easy for him. He's broken the game of football. I look at a game like the Cal game. Do you think Miami comes back in that game without Cam Ward? How many quarterbacks could you put in Cam Ward's position in that game when they were down? And they come back and win that on the road, 3,000 miles across the country on the opposite coast, somehow in the same conference. That's called the Atlantic Coastal Conference. And you leave there down, 18 points or something like that? Something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They can call it the grown man. They can call it the grown man Davey O'Brien Quarterback Award because all these guys have been in college for 5-6 years.
Right. So that was my biggest issue with. We won't get back into that, but Georgia. Anyway, continue.
No, that was all. And then we have the Doak Walker Award for the nation's best running back. I think we could just all consensually agree who's going to win this year. We have Genty, Omarion Hampton from UNC, and Caleb Johnson from Iowa. All three very good players, but one clearly stands out here, and that is so obviously Caleb Johnson, right, everyone?
Yeah.
No disrespect, Caleb. Great season. No disrespect, Omarion Hampton. Genty's going to win this. Run away with it. No pun intended. I think this is probably going to be unanimous.
Yeah, I mean, I'm low-key upset that RJ didn't even get a chance to be in this. I felt like he could have had something, even if he was just nominated. It would have been nice. But, yeah, I agree. It's going to be Genty.
Yeah, you could throw Cam Scadaboo's name in there, but he also did miss a game. I believe these guys all played the entire season here. So I'd hate to be like that and have one game that you miss ruin that chance. He's a heck of a player. And coming down here, we're going to start our wrap-up here with our stat of the day. Playoff storylines. If you know me, you know that I like to connect a lot of things in this world. Whether they're related or not, I'll find some way to connect them. Playoff storylines starting in Austin, Texas. Clemson in Texas. Cade Klubnik returns home to Austin, where he grew up, where he played college football. I believe he won a state title there, too. He was Gatorade Mr. Football in Texas. It's Padron versus Burnt Orange for the first time ever down there. Hook 'em or all in. We'll see what happens. Tennessee at Ohio State. If Ohio State wins, we get a rematch with Oregon. We remember that great game on October 12th where it came down to the last snap where Will Howard slid down with the time expiring, which ruined everything for Ohio State. But if Tennessee wins, Heather, you and I know this, that means Josh Heupel and McKenzie Milton, if he's still on the staff there at that time, they get to go travel to the Rose Bowl to face their old quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, which would be an interesting storyline there.
Which I think that he will be, just simply because if I heard Josh Heupel did approve the visit. He gave him his well wishes and everything. And I think McKenzie Milton is going to follow in Frost's footsteps and finish the season with his players and do exactly what he was taught to do correctly at UCF that other coaches may not always do. So.
And I'd love it if he does. Just finish the job with where you started.
Yes.
Coming up next year, yes, we have SMU at Penn State. Will James Franklin get canned if he loses at any point in these playoffs? Or will we get an all-horse bowl in round 2 between the Mustangs and the Broncos? Russ, any thoughts here?
I think Penn State's got like the easiest ride out of any team. I mean, for a team that played one ranked team and lost and didn't even score a touchdown, and they just get set up. No disrespect to Boise State or SMU, like you get set up with like probably 2 of the more softer teams in this 12-team playoff. It's like, wow.
So if James Franklin loses, you're saying he's out?
I think you should. I think we both agree he should have been out a long time ago. So, yeah, I don't know anymore, Justin. I don't know anymore.
That's right. Then we have here Indiana at Notre Dame, an in-state rivalry where the matchup is massive, and the average resale ticket is $16.31. Now imagine paying that to see your favorite team in the playoff. Indiana fans might do it because they've never seen their team get this far.
That's insanity.
It's just robbing the everyday American of food that they're going to need to have a roof over their head.
Robbing someone of
before
rent.
time.
That's
I
insane.
mean, that's more than my rent was at my apartment in Florida.
Yeah. All I know is people better get approved for that, like Affirm or Afterpay, where they can stretch out those payments because yikes.
Can I defer those payments?
Mm-hmm.
Can I defer those payments like 30 years?
Student debt that'll be wiped away.
Yeah.
And then we have the Peach Bowl. Arizona State is going to be at a disadvantage either way in my eyes because of the proximity of either Clemson or Texas who they're going to face in that. The Rose Bowl, rematch of either Oregon OSU or the UCF reunion as we went through. Fiesta Bowl, this is where it gets interesting. Boise State has never lost the Fiesta Bowl, 3-0, beating Oklahoma, TCU, and Arizona respectively in all three of those. So if they get there, can Penn State or SMU end that streak? And more so, once again, if Penn State loses here, does James Franklin get fired?
Yes.
It's like a no-win situation. Heather, it's like if you play UCF in the space game, you're going to lose no matter what you're ranked.
Yeah. This is yikes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see all the drama because I don't have any stakes in games. So I'm excited to see all the fans and the tears I love it.
We're not stressed. Meanwhile, Pete and Joe, who aren't here today, they're Notre Dame guys. They'll be stressing a whole lot in that Indiana game, I'm sure. And then last here, we have the Sugar Bowl. Now, there's not much connection here, but what I will say is Tom Crean coached men's hoops at IU and UGA. If they make it, can Notre Dame finally get over the UGA hump? They are 0-3 all time against the Georgia Bulldogs.
That's a tough draw if they beat Indiana. I thought they should be the 5 just based off of the fact that they did go 11-1, but
then you got that NIU loss.
Yeah. I mean, they all have bad losses. So, I mean, that Michigan loss wasn't all that great either.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough draw if you have to play Georgia. You have to play Kirby Smart anytime. Your guy knows how to turn it on.
Exactly. And finally, our cheers for the week here. So, Heather, just a little background of our cheer of the week. This is a shout out to anything, anyone whatsoever, whether it's college football, sports related or not. It's all up to you. And I'm going to start off here with Timothy Chalamet. I'm sorry. I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game, as the great Shaquille O'Neal once said. He goes up there, and the man seemed to know ball. He had probably the best picking of anybody and the best research and explanation behind it. I did not expect that whatsoever. So either he really knows ball or he's just that great of an actor to where he can make it seem like he knows ball. Either way, it made for entertaining TV, and he also picked former UCF quarterback Parker Navarro to upset in the MAC title game, and he did. So congratulations, Timothy. And he is promoting A Great Unknown, I believe it's called, the Bob Dylan movie that he's in coming out this month. Looking forward to that too. Russ, go ahead.
Well, Justin, I love how you hype up all these UCF guys, how they're, this UCF quarterback won the MAC championship game, but all these guys left UCF to go somewhere else. So you're hyping them all up because they went to UCF, but they decided to leave. But I'm cheering home playoff games. I'm pumped to see what that's like. I'm pumped to see what's going on to a team to get a home playoff game.
I am too. Having that kind of atmosphere at Darrell K. Royal in Texas is going to be big. And Happy Valley too. It'd be nice. Heather, you got anything for us?
So I'm actually going to shout out someone who I definitely gave a lot of crap to throughout the season of UCF football. And that is to Terry. I apologize now because you have definitely redeemed yourself as our director of athletics, vice president, because I think when he went into the room, I'm not sure if y'all watched the press conference, but I definitely teared up watching it. And when he was in there one-on-one with the players, they asked what they wanted of a coach, and it was Scott Frost to a T. And the fact that he was like, all right, I got you. I'm listening. I heard you. And he went out and he did it. I respect him a lot for that, simply because I think a lot of decisions the schools make sometimes are money moves. And I think he actually listened to the fan base. He listened to the players, and he brought Daddy Frost home. So I'm happy.
Yes. Thank you, Terry Mohire, for doing the night thing, I will say, and bringing them home. Heather, thank you again for being here. We're so happy to have you, and hopefully we'll see you on here next year.
Yeah.
And Russ, thank you always for showing up as you do, keeping us level-headed. I know we went off on a bunch of UCF tangents today, and you dealt with all of that like a champ.
Yeah.
But this has been another episode here of Touchdown in Paradise. I'm Justin.
I'm Russ.
Heather.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the FTSN Fins Talk Sports Network. We'll see you next time, everyone.